What is going on, everyone? This is Jamal Pope, aka J Phoenix, and we're going to be talking about this new moon in Aries. Boy, is this going to be a new moon. You're going to feel this one. It's interesting, too, because I felt like the full moon that we had 2 weeks ago, I called it the silent shot because it had a lot of energy, but it was kind of a silent killer. And this new moon is kind of the manifestation of that, even though generally full moons are the manifestation point and when everything kind of comes to a head. But this new moon, because of all this energy in Aries, is actually going to be the loudest new moon you probably have experienced in quite a while. Now, this is a very interesting time that we're in, obviously, with all of the things that are happening in the world. It does feel like energy is coming at us from left, right, upside, downside, in, out. And despite all this energy, there is a bit of a sluggish nature to what we've been experiencing over the last couple weeks. I would say mainly in our personal lives. It does kind of feel like a lot of things on the outside seems like it's happening all at once, but then in our inner lives, things have been kind of moving slower. Things are starting to pick up, and if you haven't already noticed over like the last week, things are starting to pick up. It does feel like there have been some delays. It does feel like we've had to kind of hurry up and wait. But with this new moon that's coming in, you're not going to have to wait much longer. Things are about to really pick up in a rapid and fast way in all of our lives, personal lives, and then of course on a larger scale, we're about to see things even shift even more. Now, since I haven't really been making as many videos astrologically, and I've really just been focusing on these new and full moons, these end up being more like 2-week transit videos where I kind of talk about the moon, like the full moon or the new moon, and then a couple of weeks afterwards and stuff. And that's what I'm going to be doing here. Now, over the next 2 weeks, this is going to be kind of a build-up, obviously, to that next full moon. And I think we're going to start to see a lot of these sort of, things are going to get loud, but there's going to be a lot of things that we have to kind of comb through. There's going to be a lot of static, and we're going to have to be very discerning on what we really pay attention to and what we really give our energy, because the energies following the next full moon are going to be crazy. That's when things are really, really, really going to pop. This next 2 weeks, while this is going to be a loud new moon, just because we have all of this energy in Aries, it is still many ways to build up to what's really going to be coming down the pipeline. Now, let's talk about this new moon. It's happening here. It's going to be happening tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is going to be a new moon that's going to be happening at 27 degrees of Aries. Now, what's interesting about this is because this moon is not going to go void of course. It's not going to, not make any other aspects after this. It'll make a semi-sextile over to Uranus, which is right here at the edge of Taurus at 29 degrees. So this moon's been getting hit the entire time since it's come into the sign. Like, it's not going to have a moment of reprieve. It's not going to have a moment of rest, right? Now, this moon is also going to be here with Chiron. Chiron's going to be at 26 degrees at the time of the new moon. But what's interesting, and I will show you guys in the charts too, that Chiron will hit 27 degrees by the time that we get to the full moon. And that's going to be interesting too, because Mercury's going to be with it as well. Mars is also in Aries. Finally, Mars has been clambering and wanting to get back to his home sign, enjoying the rager that is in Aries right now. Because now we have Mercury, Mars, Neptune, Saturn, the Sun, Moon, and Chiron. That is a lot of Aries energy. And at the basic core of it, what does Aries represent? Who are you? Who am I? It talks about the basic fundamentals of who we are as people, what is our personality, how do we act, how do we move. It talks a lot about our behavior in many ways, how we initiate things, how we spark things off. It's the first sign of the astrological new year and where things spring forward. But even when the sun came into Aries and sprung, it didn't feel like it really had much of a spring in its step. We even had multiple cold weather fronts come through, especially here like on the East Coast and stuff. People were still getting snow in some parts of the country. We even had cold snaps down here in Georgia, where it got warm and then it got cold and then it got warm, then it got cold. And it's took a little bit for this thing to kind of get going, and then the pollinating happening, and those yellow everywhere. If you know about the pollinating, right? So and that's the other thing too. When the sun first came into Aries, we're all looking for it's like, all right, it's the new astrological new year. It's spring. We can spring forward. But Mars, the ruler of Aries, was still back in Pisces, trying to figure out all that stuff, swimming in all of this confusion that we have been under for such a while. And Mercury is here too, trying to make sense of things, going through its retrograde motion. And Mercury is debilitated in Pisces, does not like to be there, right? It's like trying to speak underwater. It's not possible. So when we're trying to communicate these different things, especially when it's Pisces energy that they were in, and this is very ethereal and non-physical, and it's already hard to describe, trying to make sense of all that once the sun came into Aries, and people just thinking that, oh, because now it's the springtime, we can have a little more clarity, we can move forward. That's not what we experienced. The reason why things might have felt a little bit sluggish, or at least paused, like we're getting hints of what can be and what's going to come forth and what's going to spring forth. We've been getting hints of it, but it's felt delayed because we had Mars and Mercury and Pisces for a duration of this, Aries transit, and it was kind of holding things back. You also have Saturn, which also does not like to be in Aries, right? It'd much rather be in Libra, right? So we have that aspect that's kind of been holding things back as well, right? And so when it comes to like these new moons and these full moons, it's like, yeah, the sun will come into a sign, but the energy of that sign doesn't really take hold until the new moon happens. All of the planets acquiesce to the sun. They all serve the sun. So Aries season, in many ways, is starting now, which sounds kind of interesting too, because we're only going to have a few more days left of Aries until the sun comes into Taurus, right? But that's kind of how these energies work. Like the new moon is in many ways the true start of that energy, if you will. So, and what's interesting about this too is that we have all this energy still here in Aries. We still have Saturn, we still have Neptune, we still have Mars, we still have Mercury, and Mars is desperately trying to catch up to the sun, and Mars will not conjunct the sun while it's in Aries. It won't even conjunct the sun while it's in Taurus. It's got to wait. It's got some time before it can catch up to the sun, but it's desperately trying to catch up to it. It's like Mars came home to a party that they weren't even the host of. Like the party happened in Aries' house, but Aries arrived kind of late to the party, and now he's trying to get to, the center focus so he can address everyone. And by the time he even gets there, the sun's going to have been left and gone off to another house. And that's the weird thing about it. And then everyone's going to be looking at Mars like, okay, now that the sun left, like, who are you? What are you going to do? And Mars is kind of like, what did the sun say? Like, Mars is going to be sitting there trying to figure out, it's like, okay, what do we do now? I'm going to try and keep the party going. That's the interesting thing about this, too. So let's go ahead and hop into these charts so you guys can see what I'm talking about and stuff. I wanted to do it this way instead of just filming it on my phone because I wanted to show you the charts because, like I said, there's so much energy in Aries, and I felt like you will have a better concept of things if you can actually visually see it. Obviously, I'm not in my usual setup. I am here at work, or my day job anyways, so I had to improvise a little bit. That's why you see raw papers behind me. So anyways, let's get into it. So here we go. We have this new moon here at 27 degrees of Aries. You see this massive train of planets here in Aries right now? 27 degrees of Aries. We have Chiron here that's going to be conjuncting this new moon. We have Saturn at 7, Mars at 5, Mercury at 3, Neptune at 2. So we have like two pretty major conjunctions. You could pretty much say that the entirety of Aries is conjunct at this point, especially since you have some large planets here. You have the Sun, which has a large orb of influence. You have Saturn, which has a decent orb of influence. So there's a lot of focus here. So that means that a lot of aspects of our consciousness are focused on Aries energy, focused on our actions, who we are, survival, war. Aries is the god of war. These things, that's why these things are coming up a lot more. So this is why everyone's attention and focus is on Aries energy, right? So Neptune, our collective subconscious in many ways. He's more spiritual, deeper matters and stuff like that. A lot of the ethereal stuff that we can't necessarily explain with words, but it has to be felt, has to be experienced. Our consciousness is looking there. Mercury, the planet of communication and trying to move information around and stuff like that, trying to communicate, trying to understand things, it's very curious. That's focused here to Aries. Mars, of course, the way that we move in many ways, the way that we act, our personality and stuff like that. Mars also in many ways still has a sexual nature too as well, but it's much more on the physical side, where Venus is more focused on, I guess you could say, the emotional aspects of it. But there's also that aspect that's coming up here too. Saturn, the planet of integrity, the planet of restriction, the planet of, responsibility, integrity, like I said, that's also here in Aries. So it's about having, the integrity of our character, the integrity of who we really are. These things are coming up. Chiron, of course, the wounded healer here, conjuncting this new moon makes things very interesting, because at the very least the new moon is at least 1 degree beyond this Chiron. So the beautiful thing about this is that despite all of this energy right here, and Chiron's kind of encapsulating it because it's been here for a while, this new moon is telling us that we need to be able to move beyond a lot of the restrictions that we put on ourselves and who we are. A lot of the restrictions that we may put on our actions and why we may be inactive. A lot of the restrictions that we may have even in our own mind on who we are. A lot of the restrictions that we may have from a lot of the collective subconscious programming that we have undergone, that we continue to project on each other. We have to be able to move beyond this stuff, and this is where true wisdom actually comes into play here. Can we actually be who we really are? That's really what it comes down to. Can we actually be who we really are? And that's why there's such a focus with all this Aries energy. And it's going to start to break up a little bit, but it's so much that's happening right here. There's so much that's happening right here. So that's the interesting thing about it. I mean, that's kind of like the nutshell of this new moon, but really there's so much here. 2 plus 7 is 9. 9 is Mars Aries energy. So this is a very Martian new moon that is calling you to action. Now, the action doesn't necessarily have to be this grand, huge, robust, you gotta make a massive splash kind of deal. It doesn't have to be that kind of energy. But in many ways, we have to get back to basics, and we have to get back to some of the simplicity of it. And I think that's going to be the key here, is what simple actions can you take that will put you more in line with your spiritual integrity, with who you really are. How can you represent these things? How can you put yourself out there in a way that is true and authentic, like truly authentic? So that's the interesting thing about this new moon. We have Venus, of course, here in Taurus at the time of this new moon. And this Venus, of course, is calling, we're going to be a little bit more focused on, our values, our self-worth and such. But I really want to kind of show you how this Venus moves over this next little bit. And then you'll really get to see kind of some of the things that are happening. I'll even make a few predictions with all this energy, because I think there's going to be more, intense stuff happening after the full moon, prediction-wise, especially on the world geopolitical stage, because we're also going to be having Pluto that's going to retrograde here soon. So we don't really have a ton of time with all the planets forward. That's the other thing. All the planets are moving forward, but we don't have a ton of time until that's not the case, because Pluto's going to retrograde soon. So just something else to take into consideration, y'all. We're going to go ahead and just move this forward. I want to move it forward pretty much until this moon hits. Let's see. Come on, wake up, computer, wake up. It doesn't want to wake up. It doesn't want to wake up. Come on. You know what? Yeah, now my computer doesn't want to wake up and stuff. Alright, there you go. Now we're talking. Now we're finally moving. See, I'm not using my usual resources and stuff like that, but sometimes you just got to use what you got to use. That's also a very Aries Taurus like thing too. Sometimes things aren't going to be perfect. I think a lot of times with Aries, and Aries is not really concerned about perfection at all. That's Virgo. That's more Virgo and Libra energy. Which is what, Virgo can be very, very meticulous, and Libra can, be very, very indecisive because we want to make sure it makes like the perfect decision and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting too because Virgo second house is Libra. So what do Virgos value the most? They definitely value some sense of order and balance and stuff like that. And they do ironically value decision making, but sometimes it's tough for them to make decisions. So. But we'll see that moon is going to slip into Taurus, and of course with that, we're going to see it come into the place that it likes to be in Taurus, its exaltation. And definitely look at this Venus and how it moves, right? So we're going to see the moon is going to cross over Venus. It's going to cross over this Uranus as we go into, the weekend. And then by Monday, of course, we're going to see that moon come into Gemini. This is also going to be the day that the sun enters into Taurus. So now, this is pretty critical because now this sun is going to shift energies. We're going to see, of course, Mercury and Saturn conjunct at the same time that this crossover happens. So that's something key to note as well, right? That moon in Gemini, of course, we're now emotionally going to be responding more to Gemini-like matters. So, communication, our mind, things that concern the neighborhood, things that concern our direct periphery. We're going to be more concerned about things like that. But what's interesting with this sun in Taurus, I'm feeling, if I had to make some sort of prediction as far as like geopolitical stuff, I think especially once this Venus gets closer and closer to Uranus, there will be some sort of disruption within the financial systems. I would not be surprised if we see some sort of spike and then like an immediate drop. Now these things happen, so it's not like, I know that's kind of a broad prediction, but because Uranus is a bit of a disruptor already, and with Venus going over that spot, and Taurus does in many ways rule like physical goods, it does rule money, and it rules like resources in many ways. So the fact that Venus is going to be coming with this Uranus very shortly, there's going to be some sort of major disruption. And Uranus, of course, does in many ways deal with, other people in the world at large. So there's going to be some sort of global disruption that happens here because we still have all this Aries energy, even though a lot of the energy will have moved out by this point. The sun will have moved out. Of course, the moon's not there. We still have 5 energies there with Neptune, Saturn, Mercury, and Mars. So there's definitely going to be something that happens on this Monday. It's going to be interesting because it kicks off with this Saturn Mercury conjunction here at 7 degrees as that sun hits 0 degrees. But as we continue to move towards the full moon, we're going to see, of course, that Venus is getting ever so closer to that Uranus. So by the time that we hit, keep it moving forward. And it's crazy because Uranus is like literally on the edge. We're talking 2951. It's literally right here on the edge of it. And you can see that by the time that we get this Venus-Uranus conjunction, when it starts, where is Chiron? It's at the degree that the new moon happened, right? This moon will also be in Cancer at the same time of this, so it's actually going to be making a sextile over to this energy. At the same time, it's going to be squaring the new moon. So we're going to have that first quarter square right here of this moon to, well, not first quarter square, but we're getting close to the first quarter square. It's starting to really apex, but it's squaring where the new moon was. So that first quarter square is going to start to formulate while Venus is on top of Uranus. So definitely some type of major disruption, I would say here. Definitely some sort of wrench is getting thrown into things. And we got to also consider that all this Aries energy is in the 12th house to the sun. So this can be dealing with a lot of hidden stuff, a lot of hidden agendas, hidden politics, hidden actions, hidden conversations with Mercury here in Aries too. I definitely feel like we're going to have some type of hidden conversation that's going to surface, that's going to really disrupt a lot of relationships, especially geopolitically and stuff like that, or even just within nations themselves. But I would not be surprised if we get some type of viral clip of some type of conversation that was meant to be hidden that kind of comes to the surface. This could be through some sort of investigative journalism or some type of leak where someone comes forward and exposes something. I think we might get the little bit of it start to really come up here, but honestly, I think a lot of it's going to come after. But the reason why I think some of this stuff is going to start to proliferate over the next week or so is because by the time that the moon comes back around and it hits Pluto, Pluto's going to be retrograde, and that's when I think we're going to have like some sort of major riot that happens. Some type of major event, and we are getting into riot season in general, which is crazy that that's even a thing, but I think once that moon comes around to Pluto, and Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius, which does rule riots and does rule rebellions, there's going to be some type of conversation. And people are already rioting. People are already rebelling. We got people shooting cops for taking out, eviction notices. We got people burning down warehouses and stuff like that. I'm not going to really talk too much about the politics of all those sort of things. I'm just simply being an astrologer, observing these things. We do have people rebelling in their own way, but there's going to be much more of a larger scale rebellion. And it's not going to be like a King's Day protest or anything like that. This is going to be something else that comes up. Because something is going to be revealed that was meant to be secret. That's what I'm predicting. So, now, if we continue to move this forward, of course, we'll see that moon that's going to come into Leo. We'll actually get that first quarter square, which is going to be happening around 4 degrees or so. We're also going to see Venus shift signs. It's going to cross over Uranus and go into Gemini. So we're going to get some new energy there as well. So there's going to be a lot of things that come up with relationships and communication. It's going to be really, really big, and it's going to be really, really important about how we really, truly communicate, our intentions with our friends, our family, colleagues. That stuff is going to be very, very important. But that moon in Leo is definitely going to bring a bit of a fire to it. So a lot of people are going to be kind of in their feels and maybe even find themselves exalting the way that they feel over others, because a lot of times this is what the moon in Leo does. People may exalt the way that they feel over other people. And it's important the way you feel, but if you exalt it over other people in a negative way without checking your own emotions and having, emotional regulation, this is when things can kind of get serious. I think when the moon comes into Leo and when Venus goes into Gemini, this, I think, is going to be kind of like that beginning of sort of like an organization of some sort of demonstration that we may see. Once that moon comes back around in the Aquarius. And whatever protest happens, whatever demonstration, whatever riot happens, it could very well happen before the moon even reaches Pluto. But it's definitely something that's going to be culminating. I would not be surprised if we see something and it goes viral. So we're going to continue this forward. As you can see, as the sun is going to continue to move throughout Taurus, right? The main thing I really want you to see, of course, is once we get to that full moon, and we'll talk a little bit more about the full moon, of course. You also see, of course, Uranus is going to slip into Gemini as well. This happens on the 25th to the 26th. We're going to see Uranus slip into Gemini as well. So that's going to be a major shift that we see here. This is going to, of course, be happening while the moon is in Virgo. So we're going to get the squaring energy of the moon to Venus and Uranus. So once again, some type of major disruption. Uranus does rule technology. Gemini rules communications. Would not be surprised if we get some sort of weird some weird some technology goes down. Maybe some people lose cell service for a while. Maybe some sort of cyber attack or something like that. I would not be surprised if we see something like that happens around this time, April 26th. Because of that disruption that Uranus does bring to Gemini, we're going to see something weird happen. So don't be surprised if suddenly cell service is down for a while for some people. Maybe even some sort of projection from the sun kind of messes with technology for a bit. I would not be surprised if we see something like that happen around this time as well. We're going to continue to move this forward, like I said, to that full moon and kind of the culmination of what this new moon is going to be like. We'll see that moon is going to slip into Libra. It's going to now make the trines over to all this energy, but it's also going to start to oppose all of the Aries energy, right? So We're going to continue to move this forward. Now we're getting, of course, into May here. We're going to see the moon is going to oppose, right before, it's going to oppose Mercury and Chiron, which are coming ever so closer together here in Aries, where that new moon occurred, right? So, like I said, this is kind of reminding us of the previous full moon in a sense, but this is kind of, we're getting to this massive culmination point, right? So this moon is going to shift, of course, into Scorpio. We're going to see that full moon happen, and I'll change this to like 6 hours or something like that, so you can get like the full picture of it. So bam, 11 degrees, we're going to have this full moon, and like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about this once we get here, but as you can see, Mercury and Chiron will have met by this point at 27 degrees, and it's getting ready to cross over Chiron, and it's going to be barreling towards Taurus. Mars has only just reached the halfway point of Aries. So that's kind of the interesting thing. It's like the motor, which in many ways is Mars, hasn't even, it just made it over halfway through Aries. So when I say things are a bit sluggish and things feel like they're kind of moving slow and fast at the same time, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you're going to have some power, you're going to have some energy to kind of move things forward, but it's going to feel a little bit slow. It's not going to be immediate. But what I kind of predict, at least I guess on a larger, grander scale, some type of disruption with technological communications. Maybe websites go down. You know, that's probably something that could be very well like a widespread website down, like maybe like a YouTube goes down or X or something. Some major website's going to be down, and a lot of people won't be able to access it. Some type of hidden conversation is going to come to light that's going to piss a lot of people off on both sides of the political aisle. So that something like that's going to happen, and that in turn is going to probably spark some type of riot that's going to happen. I predict after the full moon, but it very well could happen before the full moon, but I think it'll happen afterwards because, like I said, this Pluto is getting ready to retrograde in Aries, and we're about to kind of hit this, riot season anyways. Things are getting warmer. This 11-degree full moon, like I said, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but 11 is a number of manifestation, so, and it will be in Scorpio, so this is going to be dealing with deep emotional shit and things that we have to really work through. But because Mercury is going to be on Chiron at the time of the full moon, people are really going to be speaking from their scars, from their pain, from their hurt. And if they don't necessarily do the work, over this 2-week period before Mercury reaches Chiron, and while we can acknowledge our scarring and our hurt with Chiron, if we are communicating from a victim mentality, that's what we're going to end up manifesting. But if we communicate from I guess you could say the victor mentality, or someone who is willing to overcome despite their scarring, despite their issues, and is able to see the positive side of things, and is able to turn those scars into their superpowers, because that's one thing I talk about with Chiron. It's about how can you turn that which has hurt you and plagued you into a superpower. If you're unable to do that, then you're going to find yourself manifesting, more of the same. If you're able to, move past it to a degree and heal, because it's meant to be a healer, if you're willing to actually take the medicine, which, like I said, is going to come down to, are you going to act different? Are you going to do something different? Or are you going to be doing the same thing and banging your head against the wall? Aries, it's the ram, so they're just going to bang, bang, bang. You ever see two rams bang their head together and they just sit there and pause? They have to recollect. I felt like some people have been banging their heads against the same things, the same themes, the same whatever, and they're not even giving themselves a moment to pause and reflect on what they just did to themselves. They're banging their heads so much that they're not giving themselves any kind of reprieve, any type of rest. You know, so
What's up, Jamal?
what's going on, dude? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How you been?
I've been all right, man.
Good to
Absolutely,
see
it's
you,
a beautiful day. Good to see you too. Got my neighbor over there just saying what's up. So, but yeah, some of you guys have been banging your head. I think we all have been to a degree with something in our life. Been banging our head against the wall of whatever issue it is, whether it's with a job, a person, whatever, and you're banging your head so often that you're not giving yourself time to pause so you can collect yourself. By the time that some of you guys pause, your brain's going to be mush, and then you're going to be much more easier to control. And I think that's what some of these people in power know. They know that they can keep putting things in front of you for you to ram your head against, and you don't give yourself a chance to pause and reflect on your actions, whether you feel like you are validated or not. That's not to say that the way that you feel is not validating. That's not to say that you shouldn't be upset about certain things and want better for yourself and want better for society. But if you're constantly taking the bait, then your brain's going to be mush, and you can't be of service to yourself and to other people in the way that would be best suited. You won't be able to step really into your true power because your brain will be mush and you're just very easy to control. So, I know it sounds a little bit harsh, but that's what I got. So, wow, 31 minutes. I wasn't expecting for this to actually go that long. But honestly, with the new moon like this, with all the energy in the Aries, there's so much. If you are an Aries, you're definitely feeling this. Like I said, over the next couple of weeks, I guess you could say my predictions, some type of mass disruption within communication. Maybe a major app goes down for a while, people lose service or something like that. Some type of hidden conversation comes to light and people are going to be pissed about it, and that conversation is going to spawn some type of riot or some type of rebellion that occurs sometime over the next month or so. Like I said, it could happen before the full moon. I think it'll happen after the full moon, but I just get the sense that something's going to come out that's going to shock a lot of people, because Uranus is very shocking too, and it's going to be crazy. That more of a political thing. I think we might also see either a very, very publicized breakup or two people getting together that we just would not expect. I think that can also happen too. I think another thing that could happen is that a very, very unlikely ally pair is going to emerge. And this is going to be on the geopolitical scale. Two countries that were previously seen as enemies are going to start to align with each other. I would not be surprised if that happens as well. So it's going to shock a lot of people, because people think that things have to always be the same way, and that's just not the case. So unlikely allies, unlikely pairings, some type of communication breakdown, and a hidden conversation so that's going to shock the world and piss a lot of people off. That's what I got for your new moon video. I hope that this message assists you on your journey over these next couple of weeks. I'll see you all in the next video, probably one of my videos where I'm just holding up my phone and just talking about or life or rambling about something, whatever. So, but anyways, y'all take care, stay blessed. I love you all. Peace.